Hello everyone, today I would like to show you how you can repurpose a glass jar, and how you can basically do it with very simple materials. You can use it for whatever you wish. I've just got in here some glass white little packets. I just think sometimes it's really nice if you can just upcycle something. So let's have a go. All you're going to need for this is a glass jar. Now I've actually done a decoupage on here and I've used some napkins. I'll show you a bit more about those in a minute. You're also going to need some surgical spirit, or you're going to need some rubbing alcohol. I have some that's just in a little bottle. You're also going to want some white paint, or again you don't have to use the white, you can use a different colour. A lot of it depends really on your actual napkins, what you're going to use as to what base colour you might want. You'll also want a paintbrush, and you'll also want a piece of sponge. I just find that applying the paint the first time on the glass with the sponge just makes it adhere a little bit better. And the reason why you're going to want the alcohol is so as you can give your glass a really good clean to make sure it eliminates any kind of fingerprints or residue from fingers. So let's make a start. Okay, so firstly what I've got here is just, I put some alcohol onto a piece of tissue and I'm just going to rub this over the glass just to ensure that it cleans any kind of oily residue on there. And like I say, it does help for it then to clean away any marks, and also helps the paint to adhere to it. So there we go. And then all you're going to need next is some form of something to put your white paint into. I normally just use the top of a lid of something. Just some basic white acrylic paint. Doesn't have to be anything special. And I always find if you put a little bit less in than what you may think you're going to need, that way you don't get any waste. So all we're going to do is just start by dabbing the sponge in and just dabbing it over our piece of glass. And you don't want to go too thick, so this will go quite a long way, this piece. And you just dab it so as it gives it one coat. And you can, after that, if you want to, you can then use a paintbrush. Just depends what sort of effect you want. The one that I showed you did have a slightly more stippled effect, so it's up to you if you want to have that look. You can probably get a slightly smoother look if you use a paintbrush, but it's depending on what you want really. So just getting into these little crevices here can be a little bit awkward, but patience. So just going to keep delving into there. You may find that you can just top those bits up if you want to go over it again. So we're just going to keep going. Okay, so once you've done your first coat, you're obviously going to need to let that dry. Now, as I've said in previous videos, you can use a hairdryer and that will speed up the process. It doesn't take very long, acrylic paint, sometimes 20 minutes, 15-20 minutes maximum, but then you're going to need to put at least another coat on. So we'll come back when we get to that part. Okay, so it's all dried off again, and what I'm going to do is this time I'm going to actually put a layer on with a brush. So it's just a case of applying it. You will get a smoother finish, and don't worry too much about the top here, because yes, obviously it will rub against the lid, but these are really more decorative than anything else. You know, I wouldn't suggest you put anything in there that you're going to sort of maybe using it every day, but you can if you want to avoid, because there's a little bit of a gap. Let's see if I can show you on that other one. There's a little bit of a gap there that you can see. You can just put some, maybe like a nice piece of string, and then you don't need to paint the rest of it. So you could sort of just put the string here and then leave this piece just glass. That way you're not going to get any rubbing. But you know, like I say, they are for sort of decorative reasons as much as anything else, and it's just nice that you can use them for something. I do think it's lovely that you can decorate glass like this, and especially using a napkin. You can use the, seems like we've got a bit of an alien in there. You can use decoupage paper, but this is obviously just a cheaper option. So, I mean, if you've got decoupage paper, feel free. I've only ever used it once, but there's absolutely no reason why you can decoupage with anything really, so long as you can get it pliable enough to be able to adhere down, because that's what you need it to do. You need to be able to, obviously, you know, it needs to be able to sort of go around little edges like this. Then use anything you like. Okay, so I'm just going to carry on with this. When you're applying the paint with a brush, it's really just about laying it on rather than using the brush in a traditional way, if that makes any sense. You're more just, you know, using the brush to guide the paint. I know that probably sounds very silly, but you don't want to really be putting any force, because it will peel off, because it's just the nature of acrylic paint. Really, it's not until you've sort of sealed it with a varnish at the end that you can sort of prevent that from happening, although you could still peel it off. So it's not something that you definitely wouldn't want to be putting in a dishwasher, but it's up for having wiped down, you know, that sort of thing. But it really is quite a gentle process you do it with, really. You don't want to be really forcing it on there. There's one little bit there that just wants to be a bit stubborn. And then we're going to let that one dry, and we'll be back when that's finished. Okay, so what I've done here is I've actually applied, this is 3 coats this has had, so that should give it a nice background when you're putting the napkins on. You're going to need some PVA glue for this next step, and this is a 50-50 mix, PVA and water. Just waters it down. You can make it a little bit thicker if you want, but I just find it easier when you're doing a decoupage if it's quite watered down. You will want a flathead brush, and then you'll also want some napkins. And with a lot of napkins, you'll sometimes find that they're a 3-ply or a 2-ply, and you just need to sort of basically take them apart. But before we do that, you just want to sort of pick what you want to put on there. So, I mean, these are sort of lend themselves to be quite nicely taken apart, where you can just got the flower, you can have the flower with the piece of greenery, you can either do the little bee, even this little Paris sign looks quite cute. What I tend to do is I rip it while it's all in the thing, just because it's all in 3. I find it a little bit easier, but I'm just tearing this because it just makes it look a little bit better, not quite too uniform. Too many straight edges doesn't look so good when it's on the glass jar, so you can just tear pieces off. It doesn't matter if you miss a bit, because you can overlap. Just get these edges off just to where you want them. Just take the excess away, and we'll do a few of these. And like I say, you only need the top part, so all of this you can discard. You could actually use that for tissue paper in another sort of project if you wanted to. I did one on the gift tags, you could use it for that, an element in there. So I'm just going to tear off a few of these, and then we're going to lay them on the glass to see how we would like to place them. Okay, so I've got a few pieces that I've torn out. I might not use them all, might only use a few of them. The other reason why it's nice to tear them is it gives it a softer edge. So we're just going to start applying these to the jar. And this is where we need our PVA glue. Just move some of these out of the way. We just want to make sure we get enough on the brush. Make sure it's in there. And then all you're going to do is the surface, just put some on the surface first of all of your jar. And then you're going to pick up your first piece, and this is where really you just want to be careful, in the sense of you just want it to just catch, and use your fingers and just slowly pat down. And once you've got it into position, then you can run some glue over the top. But again, this is where you're going to use your brush more to just guide than actually pull, because you will pull your image if you're not careful. So we just want to take a little bit of glue and just lay that on the top, and you will notice that there'll be a slight stretch in your napkin, well, it's because you're wetting it. So the less you do of this, if you know, the less you sort of put too much on there in one go, and it will just move it around too much and you'll get lots of creases. Creases I think are fine. I think it gives it that nice look. But there we go, there's your first part. So now we just need to start layering these around. Put some more glue. Just want to make sure you've got enough, so as it's going to take as soon as you put it down. And then we're just going to layer this how we feel we might like it. It's fine if it overlaps a little bit. I do have a little bit of wiggle room with it, but not much. So again, just pat down. Try and avoid air pockets if you can, but don't worry too much. The glue will make it stick. So once you've got to the point where you can then apply your glue, again you're just going to go over the top, and this is just making sure that it is definitely going to be stuck down there, and you're just gently taking it over the top. This will at the end of the process have a final coat of varnish, so that will protect everything. But what I love is just the just makes it look, you know, upcycling a little jar. I think it's lovely. Gives it another life. And then I think I'm going to go with another red one. And it's a very sort of I think crafting, doing anything like this, it's very good for the soul, very good for your mind. Just helps you to zone out. And we all need that now and again. So we're just literally taking this glue and we're just sort of laying it on the top here, because like I say, we don't want to pull this too much because you will get some creases, but that's fine, adds to its appeal. Decoupage paper I think is a bit different. It tends to not crease so much. You can, and you do tend to have a little bit more time as far as being able to manoeuvre. Now we've got quite a big one here, so I'm just going to see whether I can lay that over the top and whether it's going to look okay. I don't want it to cover up too much of that one. It might be a little bit much, so I might just use this other red one, I think. But you do whatever you wish, and you don't have to tear them. You can cut it if you want to. I just think it just enables you to have a little bit more freedom when it's cut. It tends, you know, straight edges can tend to be quite not so forgiving when you're putting it on. So there we go. Just going to lay that down. And then I think I might try and incorporate at least one of these little Paris, maybe just at the top here somewhere. A little bit of quirkiness. Let's see if we've got room for it anywhere else. Perhaps lay it just down here in the middle or something. Let's have a little look. See how that would look down there. Yeah, why not? And obviously all of this lends itself to really what colour you put on the base. You know, if you've got some lovely paper that's maybe got a lot of gold or something, then maybe a black base would work. It's endless what you can do, and you can make it very personal as well. You know, if you want to give a little gift to someone, I always think something handmade is very special. So just going to see whether I need to do any more on there, and no, I think we're fine. So I'm going to let that dry, and then we'll apply white paint to the lid. Okay, so I've done the lid exactly as I did the bottle. I actually just applied 3 coats, And now I'm just going to apply a picture to the top of this one, and I might use this. I don't know if I want something quite as big. I might just go over the edges. Okay. Yes, why not? Let's try that. So we just need our trusted glue again. Get some paper towel to wash my brush off because I had to put it in some water because I didn't want it to dry out. And all we're going to do is just apply some glue again. This is can be a little bit trickier on the lid because there's not an awful lot to hold, so it's just a case of being a bit, try and sort of like put your fingers in it if you can somehow. You may be able to stick it down with like some piece of plasticine or something like that. You can adhere it to the, but you just want to make sure you get enough PVA on there so as you've got a good key for the piece of napkin to sit on. And once we've got it like that, I'm just going to lay this on the top, and don't worry about any of it hanging over the edge because we can trim that, so that's not a problem. So now it's just a case of gently pushing it down into the edges, just making sure we get a nice, you have got a little bit of movement there, so we can push that out. So it's just about really getting it down, stuck down on the edges, making sure that we don't get any air pockets if possible. And again, you can speed up the process once it's glued with a hairdryer. Preferably it's best if you can just let it to dry, but you can certainly make the process go a bit quicker by giving it a blast with a hairdryer. It does help, especially if you're like me and you're a bit impatient. We like to see sort of an end process. But once this is done, what we will do, and it's all dry, is we then give it a coat of varnish, and you may find you might need 2 coats of varnish, just to make sure it's properly stuck down. And that way, like I say, you can give the whole piece a wipe over if you need to. So when you get to this bit, you'll find it is a little bit fiddly, but just gently push it down. And just makes it's really just all the little edges. You just want to be sure that they are actually stuck down so as nothing can come up and get caught. And there we go. Once that's finished, we'll come back and we'll apply some varnish. Okay, so now we're at the part where we can varnish, and I mean, if you wanted to, if you still felt you wanted to add some more on here, you certainly can. Obviously, you just need to make sure it is absolutely 100% dry before you apply any varnish. The varnish I've got is just Fimo, and it's just a water-based varnish, nothing special, but it's just the one I've got. So anything like that will work. I have previously given this a stir, so always stir your glues or anything like that. We're going to start with the lid. Like I say, just grabbing hold of it can be a bit, just make sure you get some on your brush and just sort of work it into your brush a little bit first, and then just apply a coat. And you probably find you're going to want at least 2 coats, and that way it gives it a nice shine. You also might notice that the colour in the napkin may run a bit. You may start to see it go across. Don't worry about it. It's just obviously the pigmentation or the colour they've used in that particular, or whatever colour makeup of colour it is they've used, and it will bleed when it's wet. So some do, some don't. This one seems to be holding its own, so that's quite good. On the first one that I showed you, that did bleed a bit, but I actually quite liked it because it gave the varnish a bit of a pinky tinge, which was quite nice. So that's had its one coat. Just set that one to one side, and then we'll do the glass. Okay, so once that's fully dried, I'll probably put another coat on, I would think, and then that'll be our piece finished. Okay, so here's the finished product. I absolutely love it. I think it just looks really quirky, and with the other one you can almost make like a set. So and as you can see, like I was saying, this one has a slight tinge to it where the pink has come out. It just depends on how they've, you know, what they've used when they've made the napkins, but this one didn't. So I just think they look really nice. So have a go, have some fun, and please leave any questions if you need to know anything. I will put up a list of all the tools that I've used, and yeah, have some fun. Bye.